The Bad Batch, Episode 3. Episode 3. I'm not kidding. The title of this episode on Disney Plus is Episode 3. Hang on, let me actually scroll through the show and see what the title for this one really is. Replacements. The Batch gets stuck on a desolate moon. Feels weird that we're dropping the bad. We're just calling them The Batch now. It's like, I don't know, it's like the cool kid way of saying it. And I'm not a cool kid, so I'm going to keep on calling them the Bad Batch, if that's okay. The A-plot of this episode, actually, not much really happened. They crashed on a moon, and then a lizard thing stole a part they needed, and they went back, and then, what's-her-face? Omega, she used her powers of being a child who understands the world through new eyes, to get the part back from a creature without killing it. I did enjoy the part where they were in the middle of crashing and Wrecker was going, "We're all gonna die! We're all gonna die!" And then he catches wind of Omega looking at him all worried and he's like, "We're all gonna be fine." That actually made me laugh out loud. So yeah, moon plot happened, but what this episode was really about was focusing on Crosshair and what he's been up to lately, and they're using him as a commander to train non-clone troops and to phase the clone troopers out, which we all knew was going to begin happening, but it's really interesting to see it from the point of view of Crosshair, who has obviously been brainwashed, but there's possibly still remnants of his true self in there, question mark? And also we get to see it from the point of view of the Kaminoans, who are worried about their entire operation kind of coming crashing down around them. The part which really interested me was when the Kaminoans were talking to each other and they referenced the fact that Jango Fett's kind of... It was Jango, right? Yeah. Boba was a clone. Jango Fett's DNA specimen was deteriorating, and so they weren't going to be able to produce an unlimited number of clones no matter what. I have to wonder how that factors into who Omega is, and how that factors into what they're going to be doing in the future, and if we're going to start seeing some weird wacky types of clones beyond just the Bad Batch, because they said they're going to start experimenting to try and keep up with what the Empire wants. Things could get interesting, I don't know. I looked up the Wikipedia page for Admiral Rampart because he looked like and sounded like a guy who was in the Clone Wars, who you know, Padme's ex-boyfriend, that guy, but it's not him, it's someone else. But I just want to kind of... I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's funny how there's already like a very detailed Wikipedia page about him, even though he's only been in 2 episodes. The scene where Crosshair orders the new troops to fire on the civilians and kill them all was interesting in that I often forget how dark Star Wars animations can get, which, you know, silly me, I watched all through the Clone Wars, this shouldn't surprise me, but it kinda did. It was done tastefully enough for such a dark subject. I thought it was interesting that one of the human troopers actually raised an objection to it, a guy who we've only seen act like an asshole up until this point, but he's the one who raised an objection and said, "Are you kidding me? These are civilians, we should take them in, we shouldn't kill them," which, you know, kind of like kidnapping civilians isn't great either, but it's not nowhere near as bad as murdering them, I guess, with a flamethrower, yikes. But our good pal Crosshair was like, "Hey, I'm gonna shoot you in order to tell the other troopers that if they don't get their shit together and do everything I say, then everyone's going to die. Good soldiers follow orders." While I was at work, yes, hi, the time between the last clip and this one was about 4 hours. While I was at work, I remembered the part where Wrecker was developing a headache, and he attributes that to a rough landing that they had, and that he must have hit his head on the way down. But I think that is a very obvious setting up for an overarching plot regarding the inhibitor chips, and that maybe there was a rough landing, but maybe it shook something loose in his head, and he's going to start developing faults much like Crosshair, and start acting animalistic towards the Jedi and perhaps the others in regards to the Empire's orders. It makes me wonder how that's going to inevitably manifest itself in terms of plot. Like, is Omega going to show Force sensitivity, and is Wrecker then going to start, you know, acting badly towards Omega, and it's going to be a whole thing, and they're going to have to try and figure out how to fix him in time, as you saw with Tech at the beginning of the episode, where he was concentrating more on figuring that problem out than on how to fix the ship, which was in the middle of crashing. I think that's definitely something we're coming back to. And then you've also got to wonder, I don't think we've seen the actual origins of a Bad Batch being made, and they could do some fun stuff with that. Like maybe the inhibitor chips all had varying levels of implementation, and this entire thing is just another experiment, to whose end I'm not sure yet. But if we want to get really tinfoil hat with it, we could do all sorts of fun things like that. And I mean, if I really want to do the whole tinfoil hat conspiracy theory thing of picking out bits of evidence that aren't really bits of evidence, I could go ahead and say that Wrecker was the first one to really point out that he missed Crosshair. So maybe he is the closest to Crosshair in terms of, I guess, whatever the inhibitor chip drives in terms of morals and forgiving people because you're on their side a little bit more. But maybe it was a headache and I spent the last 2 minutes clutching at straws. Thank you very much for watching this, or listening to, I guess, this episode of me talking about the show, which you have hopefully also been watching. Let me know what you thought, either below or on Twitter or wherever you like, or if you see me in the street. You're probably not going to see me in the street. The year's 2021 and we're still in the first half of it. I will see you next week.